Greetings everybody, Rhadamant here. Thank you for tuning in to the first episode of a 7-part series covering Farlanders. If you would like to skip the game overview, please use YouTube chapters. Farlanders is a game where you terraform, strategize, and construct a Martian colony, or colonies, in this retro-inspired turn-based city builder. I'll be playing the main campaign, but there is sandbox free play and daily challenges, as you can see in the on the side of the screen there. And yeah, let's get going. Let's jump right on in. I'm going to be playing on the classic difficulty, not relaxed. And this is chapter 1. The objective is to complete Esther's orders, and the side objective is to create water with the help of terraforming, which gives you experience points. And so far, leading the polls is read a little bit, Cliff Notes. So here you can see there's sort of like memos attached. And this is what some of them will look like. A terraforming manager application. Dear Marco, after carefully considering all of our candidates, we're pleased to offer you the full-time position as terraforming manager here at Foresight. And there's a whole bunch of different chats between you and the other characters, between you and the person that recruited you, Esther, you and your mom, people back home on Earth, and then your boss. So this is the campaign call, a call between Esther, your recruiter, and I'm just filling you in because if I am going to be giving you the Cliff Notes, you need to know who the people are. So we are playing as Marco here. Leland is our boss, and Esther is our best friend / recruiter. Leland, there's the man of the hour. Glad to have you with us, Marco. About time you joined us. Thanks, guys. It's an honor to finally be here. First couple of weeks on the old Rusty Rock treating you okay? Yep, so far so good. Still wrapping my head around how red everything is. Red's a fascinating color. Some people find themselves empowered when they see red, and others look at the very same color and find themselves afraid or angry. The duality kind of describes Martians in a nutshell. Leland, you're rambling. We have a lot of orientation to get through. Right. My point is that the people here on Mars have tons of passion, but the uncertainty of the future horrifies them. Foresight, and more specifically you, are here to make the future more exciting and less scary for them. Great, that's exactly what I signed up for. Perfect. Esther, you take over from here. Make sure he has everything he needs to get through orientation over the next however many days. Roger that. Alright, good luck out there, Marco. Remember, this is your very first task, so don't stress over it too much. Woo, how are you feeling about everything? Nervous, but not so bad. Leland's a good guy, easy to talk to, even if we don't have a whole lot to say. Well, it's your first day, plus these welcome calls are always super short. We'll get a lot more detail once we get out to the work site. Speaking of which, should we get this show on the road? I'd say it's about time. I'll meet you over there in an hour. Sounds good. I almost forgot. My mom says hi. What a sweetheart. Her birthday's coming up, right? I'll send her some chocolate. This is why she loves you more than me. So that's sort of how the conversations go. And there's a whole lot of them, and you can read them for the backstory and flavor, or you can skip them. So let's get going. As the Foresight trainee. Okay, let's blow some stuff up. We'll start with these mountains. I do love a good explosion. So, controls. Pretty typically, you got WASD, and then mouse wheel or plus and minus for zoom. Straightforward. You can click the left mouse button to select any tile or building on the map. You can deselect it by clicking the right mouse button. So like mountains, ground, wasteland, sand, canyons, so on and so forth. Click on any available terraforming patterns on the right, which is up there. Then move it freely on the map to see the possible outcome. When you're ready to terraform, press left mouse button. So this is a recurring mechanic in the game. You are given these terraforming patterns. So in this case, it TNTs things on a diagonal. TNTing sand or ground or wasteland would turn it into canyon. TNTing mountains turn it into wasteland, so on and so forth. And you terraform to expand access to the map and to modify terrain tiles to suit building better. And I'll explain that in more detail later. But the tutorial has us TNTing these two mountains here. Boom, now they're wasteland. Now we want a nice deep canyon, so let's get another explosion ready. So here are two different patterns. There's this one that the game does not want us to use. It's just demonstrating that there's multiple patterns. This one has sort of a snaking TNT design. Or this one, or nice canyon. Great, made a hole. Now let's fill it back up. We need a clear passage, so you'll have to rotate your terraforming options to make it happen. So we take this, and mouse wheel will rotate it, and then F will mirror it, or hitting middle mouse button. So now we filled it back up. Is this my life now? Blowing things up and then fixing them? Well, you're the boss. Alright, it's time to land a ship. Think of it as the heart of your colony. So, every scenario, the first thing you're going to do is land your ship in order to, get the base or heart. Your ship can't necessarily be on any map tile you want, like you can't put it on mountains or canyons or wasteland or whatever. And in this instance, it wants me to put it right here. Done. Alright, next thing we want is a rich source of minerals. So in this case, the game wants me to terraform a rich source of minerals. And if you have any questions about the game, use Channel Point Redemption, and once I'm done with this first tutorial mission, I will answer as many questions as I can. So in this case, for the terraforming patterns, there's one that just gives minerals, and there's another that clears soil and gives minerals. And the one that clears soil and gives minerals is going to be more useful, because it does more things. So I can improve the sand into ground, and I can clear the wasteland into sand, and then I can add minerals to the area as well. Why don't we expand the size of our mineral source? So this is another pattern. There's different ways of doing it. All three of these patterns will work. So the mountain means that the tile that it is selected has to be a mountain, right? And if it's not a mountain, it doesn't fulfill the pattern. The square boxes means that the tile has to be flat ground. It could be wasteland, it could be sand, it could be regular ground, but it has to be flat. And then the hole means that there has to be a hole there. So often you will have these patterns where you have to fulfill them, kind of like Tetris or Jenga or something like that. So all three of these patterns will work. I'll just use the one with the hole. And in doing that, this mineral deposit went from a tier 1 to a tier 2, or a level 1 to a level 2. So more minerals coming right up. Wonderful. We'll want to make use of all these minerals, so let's build a factory on top of the source. So the tutorial doesn't have you covering this, but basically if you look at the top left, we've got power or energy, water, food, refined minerals, and glass. Minerals is what you're going to use most to build most things. Some things require a lot of glass, like solar panels, but for the most part, minerals is going to be your buildings, your transit tubes, etc., etc. And in order to get minerals, you're going to want to exploit mineral deposits. You do get a small trickle of minerals, or really all of the resources for putting down your heart of the colony, the ship, the base. But that's certainly not going to be enough resources to actually build upon. So building a factory and then powering it up and putting people to work in the factory is going to be really important. Factories need electricity to run, so obviously you'll need to connect power lines from the base directly to the factory. So, one. Done. Gotcha. I'll make sure I wire every building that needs electricity. Now, connect the factory with tunnels. Oh wait, we're blocked by some wastelands. Try putting those shovels to use and clear the passage. So this is a really important game mechanic for you guys to know later on. Wasteland allows you to build pipes and wires through it, but not tubes where people will work in. So it's really important to consider that when expanding the colony. For instance, If I wanted to expand up north, I couldn't. There's a mountain and canyons blocking my way, but I could go south because this is only wasteland. But I wouldn't be able to put people through it. So, like, if I was planning this colony right now, I would plan to put my power grid out here beyond the wasteland because the wasteland's going to block the tubes that people use to work in. So the game's just having us clear this wasteland here so that we can send people from the base out to the factory to work. And this pattern, or this pattern, is better than the middle one. The middle one will clean the wasteland, but it doesn't really improve any of the soil around it. So one thing that you have to constantly consider is picking the best pattern that does the most stuff. So in this case, this pattern improves 2 map tiles, this improves 2 map tiles, and this improves 1 map tile. Sometimes you'll be desperate and you will need to use a huge pattern, whereas only one of the squares is doing something useful. Like if you're terrain blocked or something like that. But there we go. Path is clear. I'm thinking I'm getting a hang of this terraforming business. Now you can build a passage. Oh, by the way, anytime you demolish a building on the same turn you built it, you'll receive 100% of the resources back. And if you demolish pipes, you have to switch to the plumbing layer view. Oh, nice. Economical. All right, so what that's saying is, like, if I decided, oh, shoot, I don't want a factory, I could blow that up because it's the same turn and I would get refunded. Which, if you want to undo your turn, you can hit escape and do undo turn or restart or banner run. I mean, there's a bunch of different options. I'm going to try to play with as little undos as possible, but, like, you know, you'll misclick or you'll miscalculate your needs or whatever, so it's really nice to have an undo turn. All right, so now we're building tunnels, and these tunnels here do not go over wastelands, but they do go over sand and ground. Done. So now the base is connected to the factory. Finally, if we want our factory up and running, we'll need people. Build a landing platform so you can receive new colonists. So the landing platforms, at least initially, can only be adjacent to your base. So there's a landing platform. And there is an advantage to having multiple landing platforms, but at least in this tutorial, one and done is good. Colonists need homes, so go ahead and build 2 houses for them. Don't forget they'll require tunnels, electricity, and pipes. So here's another game mechanic. There's a morale penalty for living too close to a factory because it's noisy. So let me fix my camera. There we go. Now you have a better view, Yoda. So if we're building houses, we don't want houses within this, what is this, like an octagon? This octagon of unhappiness? For the tutorial, it doesn't really matter, but when you're actually planning your colonies out, it would matter. One thing you will notice, however, is building on this tube that already exists costs 7 minerals, whereas building independently costs 18. Because building a building here requires you to build, like, the tube, the electrical, the water, the power, everything. So the whole tunnel connection system is brilliant. The houses and factories may look empty now, but they'll fill up when you're ready to move things forward. So it's a turn-based game, and let's turn. So 10 new colonists are looking for a new home, colony morale is okay, and we have a free landing platform, so here they come. So Cal, you asked, how did clearing the rubble improve the canyon? It didn't. It uses the canyon tile as like an anchor, and then improved the sand and the wasteland. It's all working. You're a natural at this. In this case, I'll send you the details on water terraforming. So try creating a lake with liquid water on your own. No help from me. I'm sure I can figure this out. Remember, if you ever need a refresher on terraforming, check the encyclopedia. And go on, move things forward when you're ready. So here is our terraforming patterns. Water, when created on flat land, will be frozen. But when it is created in a canyon, it will be liquid. Now, there are seasons in this game, and during the winter, water will freeze, and there's technologies to stop that from happening. So if we want to create water on our first turn, what I would do in this situation, certainly I could create water like this, right? And put it in the canyon. if you read these terraforming patterns, this one requires a hole next to it. This one actually requires 2 flat terrain next to it. And then this one raises up a part of its terrain. Another thing that's worth mentioning, as you might have been able to tell, the only arable land, once you add water, is the nice colored ground, not sand or wasteland. So, if we're trying to grow farmland, for instance, you're going to want to put your farms where there's a lot of open access to ground, like this, because if you put it in the desert like this, you don't actually get to grow anything as a result. So in this case, I would pick this pattern, because in this case, what I could do is raise up this canyon here so that it could be cleared for farming. Another thing to note is you don't want farms adjacent to the factories, because it dehydrates adjacent fertile soils. So any water next to a factory is not going to be arable, as you can see. So let's plop it there. We created water with the help of terraforming. Here is a lake. Oops, we're spending a little more electricity than we were generating. Let's fix that. Can you build 2 wind turbines? It's more efficient to build wind turbines near mountains. If you do, you'll generate extra electricity. There is also, this game is full of adjacency bonuses, and it's going to be really important for you to consider adjacency bonuses, because if you don't, you're very likely to actually straight up lose the scenarios. So in this case, the more mountains are adjacent, the more power the wind turbines will create. So if I put a wind turbine here, it will create extra power, more, and I'll build one that's good and one that's bad. So this wind turbine will produce a lot more power than like this one. And there's also, some buildings will also have adjacent to one another bonuses as well. So I'll just wire these 2 up so you can see the difference, where in terms of power, one is creating 3 and one's creating 5 power. So one's almost twice as efficient as the other one, just from using terrain adjacency. Can't go wrong with the old dependable wind energy. Almost there. Just move on ahead when you're all set. And that's a wrap. Excellent work out there, Marco. I couldn't have done it without you, Esther. Victory. We got a little experience. We can keep playing in sandbox, but I'm obviously not going to, so let's proceed. So sometimes what ends up happening is when you finish a chapter, you'll get additional information, notes, journals, Easter eggs, etc., from your previous chapter. But you guys wanted me to provide you the cliff notes, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. We're going to move on to chapter 2. So the side objectives here, if you see down here, this is our experience bar. As far as I know, it really doesn't do very much for you. It's just like a way for you to be completionist for the most part. But the side objective is to create a silicon deposit with the help of terraforming. So here is the call that leads to the quest. Leland. All right, now that Marco's here, let's get this show on the road. Marco, I'd like you to meet Victoria. Victoria, do your thing. Greetings, Marco. I'm Victoria, the head technical engineer here at Foresight. Your reputation precedes you. In a good way, I hope. It's great to meet you. Victoria runs our R&D department. You'll be constructing your first real colony today, and Victoria's going to make sure you don't burn it all down. I assure you, nothing shall combust on my watch. I wouldn't expect anything less from you, Victoria. Plus, I'll be there with you. Prodigious. We're 33% more vigilant. Ah yes, never hurts to boost the vigilance stat. Now, Marco, this mission should still be a piece of cake for you, but it's a bit more intricate than last time. You're going to get your first look at how we feed the Martian population. It's some serious botany, one of Victoria's many specialties. Which is why she'll be guiding you on this one. Think you can handle it? Absolutely. That's what I like to hear. Alright, I'm mainly here to supervise, so take it away, Victoria. First things first, land a ship at the specific location near the mineral-rich deposits. Oh, also, I think it's worth mentioning, there's a lot less hand-holding once you get through a few of the campaign missions, where you pick your own landing spots, you just do everything. You do all the planning and strategizing. There's not like a build here, do this. There's a, we want you to have a population of 200 and to, you know, get underground by a tier or two. Good luck, you know. But we're in the early campaign, so there's a lot more hand-holding. All right, landing a base. And Kali the King, thank you for the resub. Sounds like a good strategic spot for the base. Now you must prepare to receive new colonists. Will require a landing platform and 2 basic housing. Sure, whatever we need to get our population capacity up. So knowing that the factory is going to be built here, I'm going to want the houses probably not too close, so I'll put them over here, away from the factory's epicenter. Hooking it up with power, water, and tunnels, and then a landing pad. There. So far, so good. Oh, you can always check your colony's info to see what new policies you'll have access to as the colony grows. Precisely, explore different policies, then aim for a population of 10 within the colony. Pretty official stuff. I'll have to review them carefully. So up here in the colony info, it shows you what you will get when you hit certain thresholds. So at 10 people, we get access to the colony tech tree. We have terraforming storage, so we can store certain terraforming patterns. We get some research points and electronics. Fledgling colony gives more research, food, electronics, and trading. And then there's other things that you gain access to as your population grows, but not in this mission specifically. Hey DSN, thank you for the resub. All right, so the checklist here is reach a population of 10. Done already. Easy peasy. And there's the tech tree and terraforming storage. Now I present the tour de force of Foresight, the R&D tech tree. By researching energy conservation, this allows us to construct solar panels. So this is the tech tree. Obviously, a lot of it is locked in this campaign mission, but solar panels, done and done. This is really robust, so much technology. Prodigious. Will require 3 solar panels. Solar panels obviously require sunlight, so avoid constructing them in the shade. Some buildings, such as solar panels, receive efficiency bonuses when constructed near one another. Check a building's detail for more info. Build solar panels close together for maximum efficiency, and avoid building them in shade. Got it. Alright, so if you're wondering what shade is, shade always comes from one direction, which is here, in the shadows of mountains. So when you're planning on building a lot of solar panels, what you want is a really wide open space that won't have a lot of shade around. So in this case, there is like a nice sort of 4x3 box here that could accommodate a lot of solar panels. Also, don't build it immediately adjacent to water, because this tile right here that I have the solar panel can be modified and terraformed into farmable soil. So you don't want to build a solar panel where you can potentially one day farm and then have to blow up the solar panel once it becomes arable. The other thing to consider when planning out solar panels is right now as it stands, I have very limited access to the map, right? I don't even have access necessarily to this water because it's beyond the wasteland here. So if I can't even build farms here because I have no way to get people from the base or homes to the farms because there's canyons and wasteland blocking me. There is likewise canyons and wasteland blocking me in almost every other direction. So why I mention this is we can build cables through the wasteland. So what's ideal when you're planning out like solar panels is to place them where you wouldn't be able to inhabit anyway, which would be like out here or up here. this would be another good spot for them. The case to put them up here is that there's not a lot of other purpose for this territory other than to just have solar panels, but I'm going to be putting it over there anyway. So there's the cables out to the solar panels, and then I'll start the solar panels here. 1, 2, 3. The colony is beginning to prosper. Will require a factory. Factories deplete resources over time, so they won't last indefinitely. Makes sense, one factory coming up. So if you click on the mineral deposits, you can see this little number here. It has 40 cycles of minerals before it gets depleted. Through terraforming, you can add minerals to a deposit, but generally speaking in a campaign, you're going to be exhausting them and moving on to the next resource node rather than trying to terraform them back up. But the option's ultimately yours. So, there's the factory. The power, and the tube. At this rate, we should aim for a larger population. Construct 2 water condensers to stockpile liquid water for the colony. Can do. That should sustain about 20 colonists. So if you look at the top left, with a current population of 10, we are just breaking even on water consumption. So it's just advising us to add some more water. And I'll put the water condensers up here. Again, water condensers don't want to be in shadow, so avoid plopping them in shadow. They also do not benefit from adjacency bonuses, but they don't mind necessarily being within the pollution of a factory. So one thing that you can do with the water condensers is place them near the factory, because there's no negative consequences as a result of that. They work just as well. Down here, it tells you what to expect. So in 2 turns, I'll have people immigrating. In 3 turns, I'll have terraforming options. And in 5 turns, I'll have terraforming options. So when the game's like, all right, your current checklist is to get a population of 20, I just have to advance time. Cereball and Guitar Loan, thank you for the resubs, by the way. Cheers. So right now, there is not really anything for me to do this turn. So I'm just going to skip it. Now, the problem is, actually, before I enter next turn, what you can do is return. Because I don't have space to house the additional people that want to come in. So let's build the housing. These housings are empty and these are full. And people will attempt to live in housing that is most attractive. Attractiveness is a factor that comes in later with morale. Glitch, thank you for bits. And cheers. Fantastic. With a greater population, we'll need to produce food and water to feed our colonists. First, a water pump. See that lake? Research the appropriate technology and then build a water pump. And then connect them with pipes, right? Affirmative. So water extraction is not a technology that leads to anything else, but allows you to build water pumps, water tanks, and reinforced pipes. And she wants me, unfortunately, where I was planning on putting a farm, to build a water pump. So here it is. And a water pump will dry out all of the arable land around it. So when you do that, you use all of the water, and therefore you cannot farm. Also, these water pumps require reinforced pipes all the way to your base. Some objects, like geothermal generators and water pumps, require an improved version of itself in order to operate correctly. But when you build an improved version over the existing pipes or cables, it's discounted. So that overlapping your previous infrastructure comes at a discount. Fine work. You may have noticed that we built the water pump. The fertile soil surrounding the lake disappeared. It sure did. Our water production now exceeds our colony's needs. You can construct extra storage for that water, but for now, let's run the pump at half power. So if you click on a building, this power icon turns it off. And as you can see, as soon as you turn it off, the farmable land comes back. And then this icon runs it at half power and also half staff. So if you're running into job or worker shortages, you can always run it at half staff. So up here is how many workers we have. Oh, me toggling it on and off triggered the tutorial, so I'll have to read this first. And now we require food, which can be grown in greenhouses, but built on fertile soil. As we've observed, normal ground transforms into fertile soil if there's open water nearby. I see an ideal location for fertile soil. Allow me to transfer a water terraform. Blast, I sent the wrong one. No matter, that's what terraforming storage is for. Alright, so before I do terraforming storage, up here in the top, you can see your total pop. So right now I have 20 people and 20 housing. And then how many free workers? I have 14 free workers, but if I run this at half staff, I get 15. So, she sent the wrong terraforming pattern. This is the terraforming pattern, and what I could do is I can hit save and stick it in the terraforming save box for later. That way I can use it sometime in the future without, having to pass on it. Woo, no harm, no foul. I've got you. Here, one water terraforming set heading your way. So, current priority here is used to create water terraform. This pattern here does the most. So, again, the way to read it is the requirements are in the dotted. So, like, this one has no requirements. And it wants me to create water in this location here. Got it. This one requires that a hole to be nearby, and this one will also clean up 2 tiles, which is kind of nice. And then this one just requires flat ground nearby. So if we rotate this like this, what happens if I use it rotated like this is in this spot it will create water, and in these 2 spots where there is currently wasteland, it will turn the wasteland into sand, which is improving it for the most part. There's only one case where you really want wasteland, and that's when you're trying to create glass. Done. Many thanks, Esther. Now we need to melt some of the stored ice into water, if you will. So in the saved terraforming pattern that we already have, I can open this up, and we can see how the fire icon will melt whatever's there. So in this case, all 3 of these patterns have more or less the same sort of benefit, where they improve 1 tile and they melt 1 tile. Also worth noting, if you melt if you have water and you melt it again, you kind of destroy it. There's not a lot of good reason to destroy lakes, but like the game will allow it. So here you can see if I use this pattern, for instance, we can turn this sand into fertile soil, or use this pattern, same sort of deal. One thing to note is that the game hasn't revealed it yet, but the hydroponics facilities that you build get adjacency bonuses with one another. So if we're looking at these patterns, this has 4 tiles of 2 and 2, and then like this, this has 3 tiles and 1 tile. 3 tiles and 1 tile will produce more food than 2 and 2. So this would be the more optimum configuration. Storing these transforming sets, or terraforming sets rather, sure is handy. Exquisite. Now you have to build and connect 4 greenhouses. You'll likely need a population of around 30 to accomplish this. And you may face the occasional wasteland. Just remember, the shovel terraform is king when it comes to clearing passages or creating a fertile soil. Otherwise, I'll let you handle this endeavor alone. I should be able to pull this off by myself. So some of the issues we're going to run into is we have no way to put the tunneling from where we currently are over to where the farming will be, where the greenhouses are going to be built. Additionally, This greenhouse fertile soil tile is in the shadow of this mountain, so removing this mountain would be ideal as well. All right, taking a look. So I can raise the mountains up to be able to offer access to the farm area, or I could go the route of removing some of the wasteland to gain access to it. Probably, or blow up the mountain. Probably the best thing I could do right now would be to raise the mountains up, as you get access to that terraforming set less frequently. And I'm going to start. I have a maximum capacity for refined metals of 200, so I'm going to spend some of my refined metals to put down some greenhouses, knowing that I will use the greenhouses sometime in the future. The other thing that's worth noting is I'm going to need, in 2 turns, to have housing for 10 more people. So, built 2 additional habitats for them. And I'm also going to destroy the water condensers, because now that we have the water pump, I don't really need the water condensers running. I can save power that way. All right, let's see what this terraforming set gives us. It gives us a way to path there. Perfect. I am going to waste a little resources by blowing up that greenhouse that I had there, because it's no longer sort of in an optimal spot, and instead bring the tunnel, and people will tunnel through a factory, bring the tunnel over to the farm area. Now I don't have enough refined metals to build the greenhouse, so what I'm going to do instead, just to get the greenhouse running sooner than later, is to put the tunnel all the way to it, knowing, well, I guess I ran out of resources anyway, but you can always place a building on top of a tunnel in the future for a discounted price, because then you're not paying for the tunnel itself. Bring in 10 more people. Hey, Darzan, thank you for the resub too. And it's screaming at me that I have a resource shortage of food, but because we leveled up the colony to a fledgling colony, I get more research, I get more food, and I get electronics. So the food will help to cover the cost for this turn. Alright, so this greenhouse is running. Add another one. And see, this greenhouse only costs 6, whereas, like, building it novel would cost 20. That greenhouse is running. Now, the other issue is I don't have access to this because there's terraforming, or the wasteland in the way. So what I could do, which would be enormously expensive, is to have a huge tube system going all the way around the wasteland. But that is probably more expensive than we need it to be. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to progress the turn one more turn and hope that my next terraforming set offers me access to that. All the while improving my power and water so that I'm not in a negative. Perfect terraforming set. So this terraforming set allows me to remove that annoying wasteland that's stopping me from forming tunnels, and it also fertilizes this tile here, which would be ideal. Got all the farms. Brilliant work. A new colony level means new policies and more science points. Now, our colony is officially large enough to trade with other colonies. We'll start by acquiring 2 electrical components for later use. The process is simple. Just make an order and wait until the next cycle for delivery. Remember, you can use your landing platforms to trade and make purchases, the same platforms we use for colonist ships. Trading too? You're teaching me a heck of a lot, Victoria. So, what she just mentioned is really important. When you have incoming immigration waves, you do not want to purchase things and fill your landing pads on that turn. You can, however, have multiple landing pads. So here, I just built a second one. But if you fill all your landing pads with like purchased goods, nobody can land to become a new colonist. So you have to plan ahead of time to make sure that doesn't happen. Thank you for watching Farlanders, which originally streamed live on Twitch September 5th. If you have any feedback or questions for me, let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to catch a live stream of mine, Rhadamant.com has my stream schedule and countdown timers to upcoming streams. If you would like to join my online gaming community, Rhadamant.com or the description of this video have a link to Discord. Thank you so very much for watching, and a special thank you to my Patreon patrons, Twitch subscribers, and viewers like you that support the channel and made it all the way to the credits. Thank you so very much. I'll catch you in the next episode or an upcoming stream. Farewell, my fellow Martians.